Join Edwin Frondozo on the Business Leadership Podcast every week for a unique program featuring insights and actionable items from the world's most successful business leaders. Hear firsthand the exclusive interviews and personal journeys on how today's transformational leaders made it to the top.
I think most leaders, they tend to be too hard on themselves. They have extremely high standards. That's where they are today. And they need to have others who fulfill those standards. And when they fail, they take it personally. But by talking to others, you find out that it's okay. If you're an entrepreneur and your success rate is 60%, maybe that means that you can build the most successful company in the world. But that also means that you have to fail 40% of the time. And hearing that from other people who have experienced the same is really good.
This is the Business Leadership Podcast, and I'm your host, Edwin Frondozo. Welcome. How are you doing today? How is it going? Thank you for taking the time to join me today. This is episode number 110, and my special guest today is Marcus Rader. He is the co-founder and CEO of Hostaway, which is the fastest growing vacation rental technology in the world. In our conversation, you will learn how Marcus overcame the challenges of hiring and firing employees. He shares the key factors to successfully managing and leading a team that is distributed across the world, and the challenges managing different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. He also shares 2 resources that helped him achieve his goals to grow as a leader. This episode is brought to you by Slingshot VoIP, a leader in business voice AI technology systems that help companies align and understand what the customers are saying when they're calling in. The Business Leadership Podcast is a friend of the ITWC Podcast Network and supported by our media partner, IT World Canada. By the way, thank you for those who have left a rating, comment on Apple Podcasts. I really appreciate you. This latest one from Reed Bracken, and they write, as a self-proclaimed podcast junkie, I find Edwin's take on business from a Canadian perspective to be a great weekly addition to my weekly rundown. Reed, thank you so much. I really appreciate you and your super kind words. When you subscribe, rate, and leave a review, I will read it out on the next episode. Now here we go. Welcome to the Business Leadership Podcast, Marcus.
Thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you for taking the time to join me today. I'm really excited to have you. For those who are listening, this is actually a couple months coming for Marcus and I. We had connected a couple of months back, but just due to scheduling, we finally got you on here, Marcus. So why don't we actually just start off by introducing yourself, Marcus. Tell us who you are and what you like to do when you're not growing and leading businesses.
All right. I'm what a lot of my friends call an eccentric person. I like doing strange things. And for example, I lived in 5 countries and I speak 6 languages. Currently, I live in Toronto, in Canada, and run a company that has offices in several continents, 3 to be exact. What I like doing in my spare time is playing guitar. I love death metal. And my favorite hobby is beer travel. So visiting different breweries around the world.
Well, I mean, Marcus, that's amazing. I really love your introduction, and I like the way you're leading your company and the things that you like to do. I mean, first off, I mean, you've lived so many places. You have people, and we'll probably get into it later, in 3 different continents. You drink beer and you travel and you play guitar. I mean, you're like the best traveling person around, I think.
Yeah. I used to be a business traveler, so I know a lot about how to travel well and how to connect to people in different countries and different cultures, and not feel like a tourist wherever I go. And that's a skill that's very useful in business.
Yes, 100%. I mean, feeling like a local. I know when I travel a lot, I think it's a compliment, and maybe I'd love to get your thoughts, is when people always tell me, "Oh, Edwin, I thought you're from around here." That's typically a compliment to me. I'm like, "Oh, I fit right in right away."
Well, that's good to hear.
So why don't we just jump in, Marcus? If you could tell us a bit about your company, Hostaway, let us know your current role, responsibilities, and maybe, if possible, what you're trying to accomplish over the next couple of months.
All right. So Hostaway is a vacation rental software that it was an idea I had when I moved to Canada 4 years ago, but we only founded the company about 3 years ago, and we got off like all startups to a rocky start. But actually, when after speaking to peers, I found out that we didn't really have a rocky start. We pretty much did the right things. It was just a lot harder than we thought it would be. But where we are today is 35 employees. We got offices in Barcelona, in Toronto, in Helsinki, and in Melbourne. And we also work with developers in Russia and Ukraine. And because we've grown from 7 to 35 people in just 18 months, my main focus has been and will be to perform a transformation. I need to stop being an entrepreneur and become a CEO. Being an entrepreneur is great. It's super exciting. It's very empowering, but it doesn't work when you have 35 people who have their own things to do. They have their own tasks and their own missions to accomplish, and nobody's born to be a CEO. And for a lot of people, it's even a place they don't want to be. But for me, it's a dream come true. And now I just have to learn what I need to learn to do a good job at it.
Well, I mean, congratulations. It sounds like things are. I mean, as you mentioned, it was difficult to start, and no one knows the journey. But it sounds like things are moving along. You're learning as well. Talk to me about that transition that you're currently doing right now, from, as you mentioned, being that entrepreneur, being that startup, that founder, and being more a CEO. And tell me, what are the biggest differences? Because some of the listeners out there may be working either within a startup or they're an entrepreneur. And I know there are a lot of emerging business leaders within organizations, and they may not even know the difference.
Yeah, so an entrepreneur, even if you're one person, or whether you're working with a team of, well, usually below 20, I would say that's maybe a cutoff point there. An entrepreneur has to know and be responsible for everything, and that includes the things you don't know about. When you set up when you have a great idea and you want to make it come to life, nobody ever tells you that, hey, you also need to be a lawyer, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a psychologist, you need to be a financial planner, you need to be an accountant. Nobody tells you those things, and nobody's really good at them. But you have to do whatever it is that needs to be done. You can't set up a business and just when a customer comes and wants to buy your product, you tell them, no, I'm not going to sell it to you. No, you have to learn sales, you have to learn marketing, you have to learn product management. You have to do all of that. Now, when you're an entrepreneur, you're also responsible for the resources. A lot of people that start companies, the only resource they have is time. And they also have a limited amount of time. For example, they might have their life savings, which will last them 2 years without a salary. That means they have only 2 years of time to make the best out of it. And that means that time is, because the time is so crucial, they have to make very quick decisions. They might hire someone instantly, fire them the day later. They might go in and tell someone what to do without having any time to give any explanation. And that's okay for an entrepreneur, because if you don't tell someone what to do right now and get it done, then your company's not going to succeed. But as a CEO, you need to focus on getting other people to do that. And you also need to, while you're responsible for the resources are direct results of other people's work. So, for example, you got sales who are bringing in money to the company, and you can't just get more money by pulling out your wallet, because your wallet isn't thick enough. You have to actually trust these people to bring in the sales. and that means that instead of managing time and money and getting things done, you need to start managing people. I'd say that many companies fail when they reach 20 people, and then they have to scale down because the founders don't go through that transition. And maybe I was a bit late, but I'm doing the best I can.
So, Marcus, tell me what has been the most difficult part of that transition or that mindset that you had to, maybe not you had to, or maybe you're still going through from founder to CEO.
In the past, the most difficult part is absolutely firing people. It's when you take a company from an idea to getting an actual product, getting revenues. In our case, we have VC funding as well. Things change, and not all people can change. Also, there's so many things that I didn't know I had to know that I found out the hard way. For example, how to recruit people. I have been recruiting for other companies and other positions before, but this was the first time when it's my responsibility to make sure it's also done right. And as a result, I recruited a lot of the wrong people. Even though we have had a fairly high success rate, letting key people go is something that has been very hard for me, because as an entrepreneur, you give the company is your baby. And when you choose a nanny, you don't choose anyone. You just don't knock on your neighbor's door and ask, sorry, can you hold my baby? No, there needs to be a level of trust. And when you hire your first employees, that trust is so important. And it's heartbreaking when you see that relationship doesn't work out, and letting people go. But just like anything, like playing guitar, if you just do it enough, it becomes nature. You get used to it. So that's in the past what's been one of the most difficult parts, letting key positions go, people who you thought would help the company grow, and then you find out that it's not going to work out.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I know, speaking to many business leaders, whether they're entrepreneurs or not, doing those key firings, whether it's the first person you had to let go or even a friend. And I know within the startup ecosystem, sometimes those founding employees become friends, right? Because they believe in you and your product from the let go. And I think that's where a lot of the emotional connection is, right?
Yeah. When we that's very true. And you have to be friends if you're working in a small company where you're basically doing everything to survive. You need to be surrounded by other people who are exactly the same, and the only way you can do that is to become friends with them. And that's what makes it hard. The one advice I could give that I was given and I wasn't able to follow it is do it as fast as possible, because it's not going to be less painful later on. Our first key position firing took us 4 months to execute, which to me today sounds crazy. But when we finally did it, we looked around and we felt such an immense relief of pressure. The business didn't stop existing just because we fired a key position, but we were much happier. We were able to focus on work again. And a lot of frustration was just gone immediately. If we could have just done that maybe in 2 months rather than 4 months, that would have brought the company a lot forward faster.
So you mentioned 4 months now seems ridiculous, right, Marcus? So is it? I've heard this saying before, and tell me how it resonates with you. It's like they say, hire fast, fire faster.
Yes, that's definitely true. One of the main challenges we've had last year was hiring people. We got some extra funding, and we started looking at our spreadsheets, and the revenues were higher than expected, and we noticed, hey, if we don't hire a bunch of people right now, we're not going to be able to show good KPIs. We're going to be showing that we are the kind of people who just take in a bunch of money and let it sit on a bank account. and we got into a hiring spree, and that definitely helped us get into that mode where we can hire fast and fire fast as well.
Talk to me, Marcus, about you mentioned your teams are situated across the world. You manage and lead a distributed team. I'd love it if you could share some tips from your experience of leading your team, and maybe some of the challenges that you are or maybe have gone through as you built.
Yeah. So I think these challenges exist in all companies, whether you're in one office, whether you're just two people who work from home, or whether you have multiple offices in many locations, plus remote workers like we do. But I'll jump straight to the bottom line. You need a strong company culture. And this is also something that I was told, even by our employees. Hey, Marcus, why don't you build a company culture? And I didn't even know what that meant at the time when I was told. And so I asked around, and it turns out, yeah, our company needs a company culture. Now, if you don't have a culture, basically you have individuals who are hopefully doing the right things, but you will start seeing cliques. For example, if I'm in one office, another office might start building their own way of doing things without me knowing it, and that's completely fine, until the day when we have built a very strong culture in one office and another office can't handle the same problem in the same way. That leads to a lot of confusion. So building a company culture has actually helped. It's of course a work in progress, and we're very early in the stage. But one of the things that we saw was that people, when they're physically together in different locations, they talk about things, and suddenly very small problems become very big for them. But if that's not communicated, or if you don't actually visit the place, then you're not going to know that you're going to think it's a small problem, but it's a big one for them. And now, by creating just more stable policies, and also building that cultures, telling our employees, even at the recruitment, who we are, what we stand for, what our values are, that has helped tremendously in making sure that we can trust our people all around the world to try their best in the way that their team members on the other side of the planet are doing.
So, Marcus, talk to me about that certain situation that you mentioned where maybe outside looking in, it was a small issue, but within that one location, it was a huge, maybe even a fire in their eyes, right? So, what have you or your executive team implemented in terms of relieving this? I know you mentioned policies. So what does that look like when we are sitting here in Barcelona and like we feel like, we need help? So what are the steps that you're taking now within the organization to let everyone know?
I mean, it's little things. If you work in an office, it needs to be nice, but nice doesn't necessarily mean a good location or that it looks nice. It can be things like, do you have access to meeting rooms? Or if you need a phone call with a client, do you have a headset that cancels the noise? It's those little things that are impossible for someone to see, because all you can hear is hey, I need an expensive headset. And you're thinking, wow, we can't afford that. But that's a real example. And so what I did before we had any policies in place was I just said, look, this looks bad. I'm going for 2.5 months now to Barcelona to find out what's going on. Everyone is complaining. Business is doing well, but people are not happy. And I found out that it was actually in the big picture, everyone was happy. It was just tiny details that they felt they didn't have control over. And one of the mistakes we did was at that time we didn't have any founders in the Barcelona office, which we have now corrected.
So do you, as one of the founders, actually spend time at each office? Do you have a schedule now to ensure that everyone feels like they have that attention from the key people in the company?
Definitely, we travel to the different locations. The executive team and I also visit not on a regular basis. It depends really on where it goes. Our executive team is in 3 different locations, so we meet quarterly, and we always choose a different office location in order to make sure that we all see what the world looks like from the other people's point of view, and that helps a lot.
And lastly, on the cultures, because you mentioned different continents, do you find any challenges or any nuances depending on, different from the country or the ethnical cultures, the differences in that, or is it all based around the company?
That's a very good question, and I think having people from different backgrounds, different cultures, is critical to the success of any business, and also having people with different attitudes or different ways of thinking. Otherwise, you risk ending up in a space where everyone just says yes, and then everything goes wrong. Now, I wouldn't. I'm not going to go into details about different cultures, but what we did notice early on was that a lot of problems where we blamed ourselves, for example, when it came to communication, were actually because of different ethnic backgrounds. So when someone from Finland, where I am, if someone says yes, that means 100% yes. Absolutely 100%. There is no ambiguity at all. Now, there's many countries in the world where they have a culture where you're supposed to say yes to everything. So if you work with people who are used to that, they're going to say yes. When you ask, can you do it? They're going to say yes, because they come from a culture where they are taught that you have to say yes, whether you can do it or not. And I think that was something that we learned quite early on, and we have a fairly good view of the people in our company, and we managed to actually take that local culture and turn it into our company culture. So one of our key principles is transparency. It's completely fine. We tell employees, if you can't do it, don't say yes. Say, I don't know if I can do it. And that already removes a lot of those cultural issues that may otherwise arise.
Hey there, how are you enjoying the conversation I'm having with Marcus? Got a question for you. Do you get inbox anxiety? You know that feeling when you open your email box and see countless number of unread email messages, which in turn, you quickly close that app. I used to have that till I developed a system that allowed me to achieve inbox zero. I'm excited to share that I wrote a short ebook to share the strategies and tools that I use to get to inbox zero every day. And not only that, I give you some challenges that will provide you some accountability to achieve inbox zero very soon. And P.S., did I mention it's free? Yes, I wrote this for you. And there is no email required. Simply go to my Facebook group at thebusinessleadership.com/FB group or search for the Business Leadership Group directly in Facebook. Now let's get back to it. Marcus, as you talk about growing into more of that chief executive role, I'm wondering, what are you doing to ensure that you continue to grow and develop as a business leader?
So one thing that I'm very fortunate to have is a coach. I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs and CEOs, and it's very hard to find a good mentor or advisory board or coach. Those are all different things. I have a coach who's a former CEO and is coaching other CEOs as well. And he has really helped me understand which questions I need to ask. He can't provide any answers, but he asked me a lot of questions that I didn't think about. And if any future CEO or current CEO out there is listening, put in some effort and see if you can find someone. Try out 10 different people, talk to them, see if they understand your challenges and if they can help you. That that is the number one thing I think this year that has really helped us forward. What I'm working on now is I'm trying to understand more about what's going on. So when in the past I saw what was going on and I found a solution, then I just presented it. But now I'm really focusing on finding out what's going on, what caused a certain situation, and what can we do about it. And the downside of that is that things get more complicated, and suddenly I find myself in a situation where I actually don't have all the solutions. But I think that's a great place to be, because that's why I hired all these people. They are the ones who come up with solutions. All they want is the questions. So if I'm able to even find the questions, I'm sure they can provide the solutions.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think it's comes back to that whole transition of trusting and empowering everyone that you brought on board. One question that came to mind, Marcus, was as were giving advice in terms of those people who are leading companies to find a good coach or to find these advisory boards, what were the steps that you took to actually, find this person that you're super grateful to be, in your corner right now?
There's one thing that really helped us is we joined an accelerator. We were perhaps a bit late at doing it. Most of the companies there had less than 10 employees, and we were already 15 or 20. But they had actually coaches for different team leads. They have someone for products, someone for marketing, someone for sales, someone for HR, and someone for engineering, and then they had a CEO coach. So that's how I met him. It was a free. Well, it was included in an accelerator program. But
very cool.
if I were to find one now, I have no idea where to start, unfortunately.
No, definitely. I mean, and I've talked to many business leaders, executives, and finding, you did mention you're pretty lucky and grateful for finding that person within your corner, right? So it's something to always actively be looking for, and sometimes just within your network as well. As you've been growing as that business leader, Marcus, I'm wondering, now that your company is growing and you're looking to bring up people and identify leaders, what one characteristic do you believe every leader should possess at this point?
The only thing I can think of, and this comes back to the transition from being an entrepreneur and being a leader, is taking the time to listen. As an entrepreneur, you don't really have the time to listen to everything. You need to pick up bits and pieces here and there. The most important thing you can do is get stuff done, and that can often be verbally. You tell someone to do something and they do it. But as a leader, you need to listen, because if you keep coming up with the solutions and telling people what to do, then you will never be a leader. That means that if you're not at work one day, nothing will function anymore, because you didn't take the time to listen.
Marcus, I'm always fascinated in what people, successful business leaders, entrepreneurs, are doing to always advance themselves. So I'm wondering, do you have any new system or hack that you recently learned that's really helping you grow right now?
Actually, one of them we touched upon earlier, getting a coach. I haven't experienced it myself, but I heard good things from mentorships as well. Mentorship is a bit different, because you go into the actual daily activities and big decisions you have to make. A coach is more focused on who you are and what you want, and which questions you need to ask yourself in order to achieve that. Another another hack that is actually related to the same accelerator I mentioned earlier was one of the most incredible experiences I've had as an entrepreneur. It was called Founders Anonymous. And it was basically founders of different startups who got into a room for 1 hour. You could say anything you wanted. You could say things that you could never tell your family. You couldn't tell that to your employees. You couldn't tell it to your co-founders, and you couldn't tell it to your investors, but you could tell it to these people. And the stories I've heard there, when I thought that I have been making crazy things, or when things are just going wrong, or that I have been incredibly lucky, hearing that every other founder has exactly the same experiences was incredibly liberating. It gave me so much confidence to know that whatever insecurities I had, everyone else had them as well. And whatever mistake I made, that's just normal. That's what it's supposed to be. If you can't find Founders Anonymous, maybe going to some very well-selected events with entrepreneurs and trying to network with them can help as well.
That's great. So talk to me just real quickly on that Founders Anonymous. I mean, and you mentioned finding this, I guess it's a safe haven, very secure. Before you found this, Marcus, it sounds like you were maybe sitting with a lot of stress, anxiety, things that you thought only you in the world must be going through, right?
Exactly. And one of the hardest part of being a leader is that I think most leaders, they tend to be too hard on themselves. They have extremely high standards. That's where they are today. And they need to have others who fulfill those standards. And when they fail, they take it personally. But by talking to others, you find out that it's okay. If you're an entrepreneur and your success rate is 60%, maybe that means that you can build the most successful company in the world. But that also means that you have to fail 40% of the time. And hearing that from other people who have experienced the same is really good.
Fun question, Marcus. If I were to ask any of your team members, it could be past or present. I know you have a very colorful background, colleagues, peers, stakeholders. Like, what's the best leadership quality that you possess? What do you think they would say?
I thought about this a lot. I actually want to conduct a survey one day and find out what the answer is. I have to give you something that I think is a great quality. But if you were to ask my team or colleagues, they would probably say that it's my worst quality.
Okay.
It's impatience. When a decision is made, I need it implemented now. If you can call someone and do something, pick up the phone now. That's what I do. And a lot of it's funny because a lot of our new employees that work with me, they think I'm stressed, or they think I have some mental issues. No, that's just what I've always been. Even as a kid, I was always impatient. If we decided to go get an ice cream, we had to go now. No, let's not go to the bathroom. Let's not pick up water. Let's not put on the shoes. Let's get the ice cream first. And that is something that I think has helped build this company. It has also helped us make those quick, difficult decisions and basically getting things done. But it's, once again, probably something that most of my team would hold against me and say that it's a bad quality.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love it. And I think that comes from being the founder and entrepreneur as well, right? Because you had the capacity to, if you had an idea, just work on it right away.
That's true. That's something that is. It's so easy for someone who joins a company that has less than 10 people to say that, hey, why can't our new staff do what we used to do? Just see the problem and fix it, and go out there and do it. Well, there are consequences. As an employee, you have basically everything you do every moment of your workday can have three outcomes. Either it's good for your job or good for your career, or it's bad for your job, bad for your career, or you might end up fired. Now, if you're a founder of a company, none of those three options are on the table. If you have to do something, nobody cares if you end up getting a promotion or if you end up fired. That's completely irrelevant. We're on a different level. The only thing that matters is, will the company become successful or not? So to expect employees that are faced with these three options every day to do things in the same way, an entrepreneur that don't even have these choices, that's just unrealistic.
100%. And that comes back to your mindset and that transition as well from yourself, from as you grow this team. And I love to hear that you're also realizing that as well, right, Marcus?
Yeah, well, I can only thank my coach for that. I recently read there's a movement on GitHub against the Chinese work culture, the 996. Have you heard about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you want to explain to the listeners what 996 is, it'd be great.
Yeah, as far as I understood, a lot of the tech startups and successful companies in China, they hire people, and I'm sure they pay well, and you have great career opportunities, but you have to work from 9 in the morning till 9 in the evening, 6 days a week. And I don't remember the company. I read a quote from a CEO who said that we're successful today because I used to have my alarm clock going off every 2 hours in the night so that I could answer the customer support tickets. And I was just thinking, yeah, that's what you have to do. But there's a reason why people choose to take a job. It has to be enjoyable. I mean, you're getting rich, I hope, or you're going bankrupt. That's what many entrepreneurs end up doing. They end up going bankrupt, and that's your choice. And it's your choice to have an alarm clock every 2 hours. But it's not something that employees want, and you're not going to be able to retain and even attract the talent that will make you successful if you have that attitude.
No, 100%. And I mean, for one thing, I think as they talk about 996, it might be an unspoken language in startup culture, though. We may not say 996, but sometimes that expectation is there as well for high pressure startups, right? And maybe in some within the valley. I know when some of the big giants now were starting up, people are working around the clock, right? So it's hard to say, but I know as business leaders, even myself, I block out my family time and I don't work on weekends. And I have a tech startup as well, but it's just the way we choose to live our lives and lead our businesses, right?
Yeah, definitely. And what I mean, you have to do what you have to do. And what we're doing right now is trying to find that balance. We don't want anyone burning out. We don't want anyone quitting because the stress is too high. It's hiring and for any position is a big investment for us. It's an investment in time. We want people to grow with our company, and they have to enjoy their lives. But at the same time, we do have financial goals to meet. So what we just started this week is we give full transparency to every one of our employees, even subcontractors that we work with, on what our finances are. What are we expecting revenues to be? How much are we spending, and how are things going? Because we found out that in the earlier days of our company, there were people who, well, they didn't have access to that information. We didn't know how to handle it. I mean, if your company is going bankrupt and the only ones who can stop it are your employees, you're not going to tell them that you may not be able to pay their salary next month. Mm-hmm. But we found out that we could have done a lot better. There were people who were not feeling any stress at all, and they were surprised when they found out about how hard it was. They said, "Oh, I could have done so much better." And so I'm glad we reached a stage where we can be transparent, at least to our employees, and let them know when it's time to put in their best, and when they should focus on doing a good job.
That's great. Marcus, so what else is going on? Do you have any other special projects, initiatives, milestones, or anything fun that you are looking towards or super excited about?
Well, actually, a lot of the things that we touched here right now is the most exciting part of my life at the moment. Growing as a leader is overall one of the most exciting projects that I've done in this company. And I started at the end of last year. I started very systematically emptying my calendar. I was completely fully booked in the calendar for 3 years in a row, and just at the end of December, I was finally able to choose my own meetings. I have now very critical meetings where I don't need to attend. I still do, but it's my choice, and I have full trust in that. And being able to step out without losing touch with the business is very important. And I will use this time. I know that probably in 12 months my calendar will be fully booked again, but I will use this time to take a look at the company from a bit of an outsider perspective and see what I can do to give the best tools to everyone. And of course, at the same time, I'm going to take the company through massive growth and probably a lot of changes, and do another round of fundraising and raise a kid at the same time.
Well, that's amazing. I'm super excited for you, and definitely keep us up to date on everything that is happening within your world. But before we end, Marcus, do you have any final thoughts, observations, ideally any actionable items that you could share to the growing business leader who is listening today?
Yes, there's only one thing I can say. Go out and get some peers. Pay a coach if you can find one. Talk even to your friends or your family, because whatever unique challenges you think you have, there's people out there. They may not be entrepreneurs, but they may have been in managerial positions before, that can help you. And those. There's things you may not want to talk about with your board. You may not want to talk to your investors, your colleagues, your co-founders, or your employees about. But talk to someone about it. It's really good to have a network of people who you feel that you can talk to, and preferably those people should know as little as possible about your business.
Well, that's an important point. I appreciate that. To close, Marcus, can you tell us where we can find more information about you, HostAway, or anything else that you'd want to share with us today?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a vacation rental property manager and you're looking for a one and all solution, hostaway.com is the way to go. I'll also be giving a pitch at the Collision Conference here in Toronto in May, on the 22nd of May. And you can find me on the team page on our website. There's probably LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter included as well.
Awesome. Well, good luck on the pitch. Marcus, thank you for taking the time to join us on the Business Leadership Podcast.
Yes, thank you very much for having me, and have a wonderful day.
That's it, Biz Leaders. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Business Leadership Podcast. This was number 110 with Marcus Rader. If you want to learn more about Marcus, HostAway, or anything else that we discussed, please go to thebusinessleadership.com/110. Join me in my private Facebook group where I will discuss this episode, answer your questions, and connect you with other like-minded business leaders. Simply search for the Business Leadership Group directly in Facebook. And if you haven't done so yet, please subscribe, rate, and leave a comment on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening to the podcast today. Thank you again. Edwin signing off.
Thank you for listening to the Business Leadership Podcast at thebusinessleadership.com.